What is going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me on this Saturday afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. I have a good guest for you today. You know him from the Hammer and Nail show. He writes for all 49er SI and covers the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. He is the one, the only Jack Hammer. How you doing, boss?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Wanted to do something this weekend. Talk a little bit of 49ers. I haven't done a lot of live streaming this week, so I figured I'm like, I gotta figure somebody, and you're like always so gracious to do it. So I'm like, I might as well ask Jack Hammer.
Might as well. Hey. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you're one of the many. You're like a goat. You're like goat. There's a couple goats. You're all goats to me. I love all of you guys. So, like I said yesterday in Rob's stream, like that, there's too much like goat going on, man. I don't know if I can take it. Like goat overload.
I don't know. It was either. Well, I don't know if you watched if you watched that whole video, you might be calling us old goats, because that was kind of the theme of our show yesterday. It seemed like.
I'm right there with you guys. I'm 42 years old. I'm not exactly young myself, so.
But you got the hat on, so we can't tell if you're bald or not. You look fine. So
I have.
Oh, look at that! You got a full head of hair. Come on now. Oh,
I have a lot of hair. I got the whole Burr, whatever that comedian is, before he went bald.
There you go.
Bill Burr thing going on. So I figured we just get into the topics here. I'm going to say hi in the comments real quick to Luke Luna. He says, hello, Aaron, my dude. Super Gremlin Productions, my boy Karthik, who just started up his YouTube channel. What's up, my man? I hope everything's going well with you. Celts Chronicles, what's up, Rich? How you doing? Thanks for popping in here, guys. What's going on, Kimberly? How's everybody doing? Thanks for coming in and supporting the stream. Swan Song says you have more hair than me. Sorry. I mean, I have a really big forehead, though, so it's pluses and minuses all over. Okay.
There you go.
So a lot of QB talk has been happening. A lot of different opinions from different people covering the 49ers. Even national media coming out with really stupid takes. Guys like, I'm trying to think of his name, Marcellus Wiley, and the guy who speaks really, really well, but I can't remember his name. Anyways, a lot of trashing of Trey Lance, a lot of people doubting Trey Lance. There is people that are there to support him and talk about him, like Peter King and others who have a lot of positive to say about them really going forward and being happy with them. What is your take with all like the disconnect between the people that actually cover the 49ers and know more about them and the people that cover the 49ers on a national scale who seem to be completely out of the loop?
I think the if we're going to call it a disconnect, I think what's happening is I can understand like where, like for example, like a Booger McFarland. I don't necessarily agree with exactly what he's saying, but like where they're saying, the injury history, the injury, he hasn't shown us he can stay healthy. He hasn't shown us that he can make, certain things. I can understand why somebody who doesn't follow the team all the time, or even if you do follow the team all the time, I can understand why you'd have a little bit of nervousness around it. We didn't see a whole lot of them in 2021. We only saw 2 games. The first game he did get hurt, and which caused him to miss some time. So from an injury standpoint, I can understand all of that. I don't agree with it. I don't think he's a guy that's going to be, an injury concern on a regular basis. I don't think that, just because he didn't play doesn't mean that he wasn't ready to play. If he had to play last year, he could have played, and the 49ers would have been fine. I don't know if they would have made the playoffs or gone as far in the playoffs once they got there with him. I think there would have been some struggles early on, and they might have lost a game or two early on that they didn't. But Trey Lance is a guy who, when you look at what he did against Houston, his growth from week 5 to week 17, from where he started the training camp to where he finished the year off, that growth is important. And I think you really had to drill down. I think too many of these folks are looking at it as, it was only Houston, but Houston's defense, especially their passing defense, wasn't all that bad. They were pretty good. And one of the reasons that they were so good was because they took the ball away a lot. And, Trey Lance played better against them than Mac Jones twice, or Mac Jones played against them. He played better than Trevor Lawrence played in the 2 games that he played against Houston. He played better than Justin Herbert played against them. So, you take all that up, you take all that, and I think it's just a matter of folks not seeing it because they're not watching all the games. They're not watching it as closely as some of us are. Uh, and there's another piece to this. When you get onto these national TV shows, people are telling you what to say. I mean, to an extent, they're your opinions, but there's also people telling you what to say. And I mentioned this recently, and I'll say it again here, is that, like last offseason, for example, when we were doing the run up to the draft, and they're showing plays of the quarterbacks. I think it was a Trey Lance one, or I'm not sure who it was, but I was watching NFL on a Tuesday night, and I saw them breaking it down, and it was um, Derek Carr talking about it, for example. The next morning, I turn on NFL Network and I'm watching it again. The same breakdown comes up. It's now, Brian Baldinger, and he's saying the exact same thing that Derek Carr, word verbatim, had said the night before, because they're reading a teleprompter. It's not, and so when we watch these national shows, you got to remember they're doing it to make clicks. They're trying to get their views. They've got to get, that out there. So they set it up in a way, if you and I are coming on the show, we don't do this, but we could say, hey, Aaron, you're going to be pro Trey Lance. I'm going to be negative on Trey Lance. And that way we can debate it out. And I think to an extent, that's what we're seeing on these national shows.
I mean, you could have you and Jesse on, and it's an organic one side or the other. It's not playing. It's actually, I've never seen two people that look like they hate each other on Twitter, and then when they're on here, they're so great with their takes and how you guys run the show. But yeah,
real quick, I mean, the one thing that I will say about that is that we come from different angles on a lot of our topics. Mm-hmm. We kind of can meet in the middle on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. When I'm on Twitter and I'm watching games or I'm writing about games, I'm looking at it from I'm not looking at it from the standpoint of a fan. I'm looking at it from somebody who's just analyzing the team. Jesse's a fan. You're a fan. There's a number of other folks that are fans. And so, Jesse's always been big on Trey Lance. He's been a huge supporter of Trey Lance from the get-go, because he believed in him. And that's fine. So, I think there's times when he goes over the top. He thinks there's times when I go over the top, and we have a good time with it. And at the end of the day, we can argue about football on here all the time or on Twitter, whatever, but we like each other. And the fact that we come with different, we appreciate the fact that we don't come with the same viewpoints.
Yeah. Cause if you have the same viewpoints as somebody else, it's boring.
It
plus I noticed something that, Grant does a lot of stuff. He's not a 49ers fan. He covers the 49ers. You are, I guess, a fan, but you have to cover them. You have to take your fan hat off sometimes, and you got to look at things from a strictly football point of view. So I think some people get oh, you cover the 49ers, you're supposed to have their back. And maybe some people agree with the way the front office does things. Maybe some people are higher on Jimmy than other people are. I mean, that's okay. To me, as long as it stays on the field, so to speak, and the conversation stays between football, it's always cool to disagree. It's when it kind of starts to move off of that and it starts getting into weird stuff, personal stuff. Then it's okay, we're going to shut this thing down here and talk about something else. So yeah, I definitely like that there's people who can have different opinions and still agree and not fight each other. I see the talk from Adam Schefter saying that Trey is greener than they realize. Somebody made a good point to me. They said, Aaron, really don't take that too much to heart because it is an opinion, and he didn't say he was stating facts. What did you make of that interview? Is it more of the same, just somebody telling him what to say, or does he have, bad information from somebody? Did Scangarello give him something going out the door about what he feels about Trey Lance?
Yeah, that's a situation where I don't think that's not where he's that's not coming off a teleprompter or anything like that. That's just that show looks like us, right? Looks like it's done on StreamYard and everything else. It's just PFF, and he's on there giving his thoughts. And I do feel like there's definitely a greenness to Trey Lance. There's definitely part of it. I mean, he didn't play in 2020 and he played one game, and there's definitely is that piece, but I feel like it's being overstated. And and if anything, maybe there's a little bit of, of Schefter still trying to be right from the miss that he had in 2021 in the draft.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. There's a lot of
And,
people that there's a lot of people that come from the media that, like, if they're wrong on something, they stand firm that they had the information right, and they will not come off and just be like, hey, you know what, we were wrong on that one. No, like they even double down on it.
Yeah, and the other piece, if you listen to Schefter closely enough, you'll realize that the way that he words a lot of his responses, especially when he's asked to give his opinion, he words it in a way in that he's never right and he's never wrong. It doesn't matter, however, because he, even in the comments that he made there, they may keep Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not saying that they're going to do, but they may, Trey Lance might not be ready, but he may, and he does that a lot. And, and I do that from time to time too, definitely with my take on where the 49ers are currently with their coach and all these transitions in their coaching staff. I would kind of lean towards the Schefter take on that, but it's take it all with a grain of salt. Taking all the information from all these different sources that you can, and then come up with your own opinions. Don't take anybody's, myself included, as the gospel, because that's not the case, because there's only a finite number of people that really know what's happening because they're in the room.
Yeah, I tend to, because I'm out of work right now, I have a lot of time to, scour the internet. I find myself like seeing stories or clips or something, and it gets me, like, instead of kind of like knowing that this is kind of like that time of year where there's a lot of nothing. It's just a lot of smoke. Nobody really knows anything, like you said, except for a few who might be close to the organization. Your Mayokas, your Barrows, guys like that, maybe Kawakami. So yeah, I think a lot of it is for clicks and hits and for people, because like I think, was it Grant that said they still got to eat? People still got to feed their family, so they got to do what they got to do in that particular line of work. I mean, it's like they're saying a lot, but they're saying nothing, and they're kind of leaving the room to be either wrong or right. Either way, they win. So I feel like you said that's what kind of Schefter's doing. You made a comment about the coaching staff, so I figure we get into that. A lot of coaching staff movement. Before I get to I have a list here of all the coaches that have moved. Before I get to that, there was a report that came out. There's actually a couple of reports that came out. The first one is the possibility of Bobby Turner no longer being on the staff, apparently on the website or something, like his name is no longer there as far as coaches. Do you know anything particularly about the whole Bobby Turner situation? And do you think that Anthony Lynn was brought in to replace him?
I don't know anything about it. Yesterday was the first time I found out that he wasn't on the site. Vish Kumaran had put out a tweet on that. Before Vish mentioned it, I responded to Vish and said that was news to me as well, because I had just been on the site to do a write-up about James Betcher leaving, and he was there, and I saw his face was there in the write-up and everything on Bobby Turner. I saw the tweet from Vish. I looked at it, and he's not there. He's still not there today. So it definitely seems like there's something going on there with Bobby Turner. That's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's been an integral part of the Shanahan running game from all the way his dime back with his father. I mean, he's done amazing. You look at the running backs that some of these that him and either Kyle Shanahan or Mike Shanahan work with, and they're guys that are, undrafted, late round, and somehow, some way, they make them all look really productive and better than they really are. Not saying that they're not talented players, but he's been an integral cog in the Shanahan just family as far as coaching goes. So if he is gone and he's retiring, that's going to be a huge he's going to be missed very, very a lot, and it's going to be a huge loss. I do think that the Lynn hiring definitely brings more confidence to me, knowing that they have somebody who specializes in the run game and is actually a former head coach who a lot of people have a lot of respect for around the league. So in that way, I'm good. Plus, Kyle is really damn talented too, so I'm not really worried. But when you lose really good coaches or coordinators and stuff,
Mhm.
It does. I think it does affect the team to an extent. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we got a long time before the season starts. We haven't even hit free agency yet. The other topic that was coming out of all this coaching news was there was a story about a disagreement about the quarterback who was drafted, and they were saying that Rich Scangarello was very much in the Mac Jones camp, and he disagreed, I guess, pretty much with everybody, who Kyle included, and John Lynch, who were definitely in the Trey Lance camp. And there was some other stuff going on with Wes Welker and the whole Brandon Ayuk doghouse. Both of them are no longer coaches for the 49ers. It was a report that came out. Sometimes you got to take things with a grain of salt. I don't know if you've heard that, and if you have, what's your take on that?
I hadn't heard it. I saw somebody tweet about it yesterday, but I had not heard about that. And I think, quite frankly, I don't make a whole lot of it. That was one of the things that Kyle Shanahan talked about, right? During the entire draft process, he was open about, especially towards the end when he was explaining what they did. He was open about the fact that he did not tell anybody on the staff the direction that he wanted to go, because he wanted everybody to come to the room with their own opinion so that they could then talk it out and figure out who the pick was going to be. And I think that it's good to have people in your building that don't agree with you 100% of the time. And if Rich Scangarello and Wes Welker didn't want the 49ers to go in the direction that they went at quarterback, I have no problem with it. And I don't have any problem with it because I don't feel like it has anything to do with what they did as coaches once that decision was made and the pick was made. And I don't think that they slacked off in the responsibility at all because they didn't get their way. I think people are kind of reaching a little bit on that. I think this whole Rich Scangarello thing in particular, I think there's a big reach.
I kind of, sometimes, like I said, I tend to bite on stories sometimes just because of nothing really happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always nice to hear something from someone else's perspective who's kind of a little bit more like open-minded and can see that people are reaching and maybe making too much out of something. I just think that it's obvious with all the coaching turnover, how much of it is they're preparing for Trey Lance and how much of it is just people want to poach the Niners coaching staff. It's definitely an interesting amount of people. I got a list here. So the Niners have lost offensive line assistant coach Butch Berry. He went to the Broncos. John Embry, tight end coach and assistant head coach, went to Miami. Richard Hightower, special teams coordinator, who nobody's going to miss. No hate on him. I don't want anybody to lose their job. He's the special team coordinator on the Bears. Mike McDaniel, of course, head coach. James Bechter, senior defensive assistant, run game specialist. He went to the Bengals. Wes Welker to Miami. Zach Yenzer, offensive line coach, Kentucky. He's going to join Rich Scangarello, who goes from quarterback coach to OC in Kentucky. And the people the Niners have brought on right now, looks like Anthony Lynn, assistant head coach, and they've promoted Leonard Hankerson, wide receiver coach, and Brian Fleury, tight end coach. So that's insane. That's an insane amount of people moving. I wonder, are they? They look like they're in a really tough position to replace a lot of those guys. Do you think that's going to be a lot of internal replacement, or would they go out the outside the organization, say like a Ken Norton for, linebackers coach, or I forget what exactly, defensive coordinator. I forgot exactly why they said bring him in, because we have a defensive coordinator, maybe an assistant.
Betcher's role was as a senior defensive assistant, and then I believe he ended up coaching the linebackers when Johnny Holland had to step away due to his health issues. And so when I look at that position that Betcher filled, if the 49ers want to have somebody in that role, Ken Norton Jr. would be the perfect name. I think would be the perfect fit. He was somebody that Kyle Shanahan likes. He hired him in 2018 for a week before
I remember that.
Got hired as the defensive coordinator up in Seattle. So, Norton also played for his dad when his dad, or played with the 49ers when his dad was the offensive coordinator with the 49ers. So there's some carryover between the two there. The scheme that they run is loosely based on what Seattle does. So there's a lot of reasons to like Kent Norton Jr. as a potential replacement there. But there's definitely been a lot of turnover, and it's going to be, I don't think you can fill all these roles from inside the team. 2 assistant offensive line coaches. Do you need both of them?
Probably not.
Maybe one of them was working more with the interior offensive line. The other one was working more with the tackles as far as the assistants there, because you see them break that up. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. This one with Scangarello is always interesting to me, because it's really probably the most interesting to me, because I see so many people excited about the fact that he's moving on. And I'll ask you this question: do you feel like Trey Lance improved as this season went along?
Absolutely. He looked shaky. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Then why does everybody keep screaming about the fact that saying that Scangarello never developed anybody? Right.
Right. I mean, I've heard that. I haven't personally never really went in on Scangarello as a coordinator. Sure. I actually thought it was a good hire to bring him back. You let yourself listen to other people that do the same thing, who have more of an understanding, and a lot of them will say, what has he really done? Who has he really developed? I mean, look at CJ Beathard, look at Nick Mullins. I just think CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins are just not talented quarterbacks. They just don't have the physical talent. But no, I've never had one way or the other on him, but go ahead.
I know I'm with you. And I'm not having this because you're one way or another. I've just seen that so many times, and I'm going to keep talking about it until I get tired of talking about it, because the funny part with Scangarello is he wasn't even here in 19 and 20. He was here in 17 and 18. He was gone for 2 years, and he came back for a year. And it's just like people choose somebody that they're going to just grind on, and that's kind of, and it just stays on it. And I'm not pointing out anybody. I'm not trying to say it in any one person, because I can't tell you how many people I've seen on Twitter that were excited about this guy moving along. And did I think he did a fantastic job? No, but I don't think that saying he never developed anybody is fair either. He helped Jimmy Garoppolo get to where he was in 2017, right? The 49ers I don't think that he plays as well if he doesn't have some help from Scangarello in 17. Was Garoppolo better in 18? I don't know. I mean, he only played 2 games and almost 3 games. He didn't play 3 full games, and he was gone. And then he was replaced by Beathard for a few weeks, who we know, Beathard played better in 2018 than he was in 17. If you look at what he did, and Scangarello was a guy who was high on Nick Mullins. And say what you want about Nick Mullins, but Kyle Shanahan talked him up quite a bit to national people. Talked about how he was the smartest quarterback in the room, and he's the one that told Mike Silver. I'm pretty sure it would be him that told Mike Silver back in 2018 that if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't show improvement, that Nick Mullins could take the job.
That's crazy. Yeah, like I said, I never had anything on him. If anybody who I had any ire for this year was Hightower. Again, like people say, you don't want anybody to lose their job. People have families, but I mean, that was a glaring issue this year, and it's been an issue over the years. It's gotten progressively worse. I mean, you look at the rankings. I did a show. It might have been with you or Rob, where the rankings every year went down like considerably. But as far as Rich Scangarello, I was actually high on him. And the only reason I've ever had a change of opinion, like you said, has just been a lot of, people targeting him or pointing him out to maybe not be that good. And then, someone who doesn't have inside knowledge like myself, you start to believe it because you don't really know. So it's one of those things I feel with anybody who does content or anybody who's a fan. Sometimes you believe the person who's controversial, who's willing to take that leap and leave themselves out there and go criticize somebody. And, if that's what they do and it helps their brand and they makes them popular, then so be it. But yeah, I've never had an issue. A lot of people are saying Shane Day is worse. I don't know. I don't know close to, I'm not a person who follows the team on a close basis, but A lot of people are saying Jane Day was worse. All I know is that the quarterback they have coming in now, he's training with John Beck in the offseason, who's kind of like a de facto Shanahan twin, who Shanahan has specific things that he wants Trey's to work on, one of them being mechanics, that they even talked about at the end of the year presser. A lot of people are saying, would he come in and be the quarterback's coach here? A lot of people are saying no, because, he makes a good crap load of money doing what he does, training quarterbacks. I really don't know. All I know is they have a lot of holes in their coaching staff that they need to fill. I don't know how many of them they need to fill, but it's definitely going to be interesting with all the empty spots to see what happens in these upcoming weeks or months as we get towards, OTAs and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, there was a report yesterday about John Lynch, and it's been out there for a couple of weeks that he might be being lured back television. There was a report that came out right around the end of the season press conference, and he addressed it saying, right now, all his, eggs are in the 49er basket, so to speak. Do you think it's just a matter of time if John Lynch leaves and goes back to the booth, or do you think he's going to stay for a lot longer than we think?
I think John Lynch is going to be here until the 49ers win a Super Bowl. If that happens in the next, 3 to 4 years, if the 49ers win a Super Bowl, the sooner the 49ers win a Super Bowl, the sooner I think he does make the leap. I think part of him staying on is that there's that competitiveness that you get from being involved with an organization that you don't get from being in the broadcast booth. I understand that he could be making more money and probably doing a lot less work by being an announcer, but you don't get that same juice, right? From working a game as you do from actually being involved with the team that you're watching in the game. And I think that his goal is to get a Lombardi trophy. And if that happens during the time when his current contract is up, I think you probably see him leave before that contract is over with.
Yeah, I definitely get the sense that him and Kyle are, it's like their obsession, which should be any team's obsession to win the Super Bowl, but just how close they got last year. 2 minutes within 2 minutes of going to the Super Bowl again, twice in 3 years. That's a big deal. So, I'm under the impression that a lot of people think he's a figurehead, and to an extent, I agree with that. I think he's a perfect front man for an organization who, he looks the part, he speaks well, everybody likes him. But I always have, and this is my feeling, and this is not fact or anything. I've always had a feeling that, of course his name is going to escape me. He's on the coaching, he's in the front office with him, Adam Peters. I always thought he was more of the reason why the Niners have been so successful mid-round. Do you agree with that, or do you think John has as much to do with it as Adam Peters?
No, I definitely feel that Adam Peters deserves a lot of credit for that. I think the biggest thing with John Lynch is one of his greatest, I think his biggest strengths is the ability to get everybody pulling in the same direction. I don't know, how much of it, the exact, picking the player all by himself he's doing it. It really seems like it's a group effort. And I think he's the guy who just kind of brings that whole group together, that whole front office group as far as the talent evaluation and things like that. But I think Adam Peters deserves a good amount of the praise for what they do. And he deserves some of the blame for the picks that don't work out for them too.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that they don't have a first round pick this year, at least as of now. They get something in a trade for Jimmy. But yeah, I've always been excited more on the second and third stuff. Those are the picks that always excite me too. Because the first round picks, it's like they have to be good because you're in the first round. They better be good. Like Bosa was the closest thing to a sure thing. Me and my nephew, again, I've told you before, he's a huge 49ers fan. We've always thought the 49ers over, even when Belky was here, they seem to always overthink themselves into in drafting people. And like the Bosa, my nephew's like, just make the pick of the best player. And we were really happy about that. Like, stop with this. Oh, we're going to take this guy and we're going to move him, or no, he's going to fit really well. You just wait. And it's like McGlinchey or something, or Solomon Thomas. So yeah, I'm always a big fan of second day and third day. That to me is always the most fun part. You know, you're kind of watching the draft closely, but not. It's kind of on in the background. You're doing something around the house. Get your little draft guide like I usually do and thumb through it. Act like I know what I'm talking about when I don't. So yeah, draft season is always fun for me. What's your I guess I'll switch topics because we're speaking of the draft. Jimmy Garoppolo, the $64,000 question of like how he's gonna, you know, be worth whatever, a first rounder, second rounder, a fourth rounder, depending on who you talk to. What is your realistic expectation for that? You think first rounders out the window like most people do, or
for Jimmy Garoppolo? Sorry, I interrupted you, but
oh, it's all right.
No, I don't. We're talking about Jimmy G. I really think that the 49ers are hoping that they get a first round. I think that it's unrealistic to believe that they're going to get a first round pick in this draft, especially when you look at the teams who are some of the teams that are expected to be interested in him. I don't see Washington giving up their first round pick in 2022 at number 11 for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see that happening at all. But what I could see is I could see it, and I wrote an article on this. I could see a team making a trade with Garoppolo for a future first, say in 2023, with some kind of, you know, there's going to be some conditions on it, but it's you get a fourth round pick in 2022 and a conditional fourth round pick, for example, in 2023 that could bump up to a first rounder if he does this, this, and this, or just this, right? So to give themselves some leeway so that they don't get caught. I would, similar to what they did with Carson Wentz in Indianapolis, right? You bring him in if he plays 80% of the snaps, because the biggest issue with Garoppolo has always been his health. If he comes in and he's healthy throughout the whole season, we'll give it. And the reason I said is because if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Washington Commanders or what have you, if you make that trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, you would expect that you're going to be playing into late January in the postseason. And that pick, as you're giving up, is going to be at the end of the first round, not necessarily 32 or 31, but it's going to be a high 20. And the difference between a second and a high something at the end of the first round is only, 10 picks, something like that, And so that's how I could see them getting a first round pick. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in Hades of them getting a first round pick in 2022.
Yeah, this is one storyline that I really want to end. I'm tired of it. I don't care. People get caught up in their feelings. Some people are so pro Jimmy that, they'll just take any chance to bash Trey. It's a tired conversation. It makes for good content, and people get really fired up on Twitter and get blocked. And it's just, after a while, it's just like, dude, okay, Jimmy was what he was, but let's be honest. We got to be honest with ourselves about what he was. Uh-huh. Nobody hates. I don't hate him, but I'm going to be honest. And as a fan, what I saw and what I felt was his limit, and his limit was he's good when there's a lot of things around him that are going well. He's accurate in the short to intermediate game, but he has issues outside the numbers. And a lot of times in the playoffs, he's played relatively poorly. It's kind of like a summary. Doesn't mean I hate him, but there's a reason the Niners drafted who they drafted and gave up the amount of stuff that they did to do it. If they didn't feel that way, they wouldn't have done it. So some people just have to let it go. It's going to be okay. And support the kid now and bring that same energy that you supported Jimmy with for Trey Lance. There is a comment that I wanted to hit. Jack Hammer let me know. I'm going to go back to Tommy Huxley, I think. He has a comment. It said, why were Brooks and Kruger let go? Not sure if you guys listen to KNBR. I do. I've had Larry on my show, I think 3 times. Super nice guy. For someone who works in the radio business and someone who's like kind of well known, especially in the Bay Area, I just reached out to him thinking nothing. And he's like, dude, coolest guy. All I got to say, he's a great guy to share his free time with just a scrub YouTuber like myself. And I feel really bad. He's the voice of the Red and Gold Rap, which is a great post game show with Dennis Brown and John Lund. And he's on with TKB, Rod Brooks, who also was let go. Definitely disappointed. I know. I would assume you have a little bit of history or interaction with them, Jack Cameron. What was your feelings when you saw that yesterday?
No, I really enjoyed listening to both of them. Larry Krueger is somebody who I've listened to going back to the 90s when I was in college at San Jose State. He was doing the nighttime show at KNBR at that point. And so I used to listen to him while I was working in the machine shop that I worked at while I was going to school. And
Nice.
so I listened to him all the time. So I've listened to him for 20 plus years. You know, he's one of the kind of the original guys from KNBR. So he goes way back there. And same thing with Rod Brooks. Rod Brooks has always been more of the afternoon guy. I know he started off on 1050, but he's been around the KNBR landscape for a long time. And I really enjoy listening to both of them. You know, the reason that they were let go, and at least what was given, was because the ratings that they're getting in that slot they were getting beat by the other channel. It was an interesting situation because when that group got put together, it never really seemed like it was going to work. You don't usually put three guys in a booth together and expect it to just be harmony because there's just so many voices to try to get in there. But I really enjoyed them. I feel bad for both of those guys, especially, you know, for both of them. Larry Krueger is somebody who, like I said, I've probably listened to him more because of the stuff that he does with the 49ers and so on. But I've always really enjoyed him. And I like Rod Brooks too, because he was a really diverse, could speak on a diverse, you know, there's not very many sports radio hosts that can talk football, baseball, basketball, and NASCAR with you. And he could do all those things. And I mean, people might, you know, kind of chuckle about that, but I'm a racing fan. So to hear him be able to talk about, you know, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon and all those guys at times or whatever, that was always kind of a fun thing to hear too. And I just, you know, it's going to stink because KNBR, the KNBR that I know has changed quite a bit. And, you know, pretty much after 10 o'clock in the morning, it's time to change the channel now.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You're definitely right about that. And I don't even really listen to the morning guys. I've always liked Larry. I just liked Larry's unapologetic. He was the one guy, even though he worked for a flagship network or radio station, who wasn't afraid to go in on the 49ers. You know, sometimes people, and I'm not talking, I mean, I don't really know. But, you know, some networks like that you're very pro team that you cover, and they don't like a lot of negative speak. And Larry was the one guy that was like, screw that. Niners need to get rid of this guy. They need to get rid of Belkey. They've made horrible decisions. You know, it just, I mean, I actually followed radio more when the Niners sucked because it was just so interesting to listen to Larry just completely rip freaking organization. I'm that kind of guy. I'm intense just like that. And, but yeah, listening to him on the post game, damn, that sucks. Like, I'm very disappointed because if I don't stream on Sundays, I usually listen to the Red and Gold Rap for 2-3 hours. And now there's no point in listening to it because my favorite guy is gone. But
yeah, I won't get into too much of my feelings on the host over there, but for Krueger and Brooks, yeah, that's a big blow. I've always enjoyed Tom Tolbert. I remember when he started with KNBR.
I like Tom too.
You know, he started with KNBR at the same right around the time that I was talking about, because I remember they brought him in. It was before he was even a host. They brought him in to kind of guest and to kind of give him a chance to see what he could do. So I'm old, Aaron. You know, I'm old, and I've been listening to these guys for far too long.
We're not that much different in age.
No, we're not. I'm about 5 years older than you or so, but yeah, no, I'm giving you a hard. I'm kind of joking, but I mean, I go back to. I remember when Gary Radner started at KNBR, so that kind of, you know, I was in just graduating high school at that point, so that tells you how long I've been listening to that channel over there.
Yeah, and I wasn't always the biggest fan of Ratnich, but now I understood. Sometimes you need the straight man. and then you need the guy, and like the dynamic, the dichotomy of the two of them was like perfect. And I didn't
Yeah,
realize how much until he was gone, and how Larry kind of just was one of three. And I was like, man, Larry should have his own gig. No offense to anybody else, but I just thought Larry was, I was a big fan of his. And this is before I even had him on my channel. I'm not, kissing up. I really am a big fan of Larry Krueger, and I'll tell him if I ever met him how much of a fan I am of him. So
yeah, I'm with you.
So I figure we can transition. I'm trying to think. I don't know if it's a topic I even have on here. I'm going to, get this thing going before the hour ends. So there's a couple questions I have to you as far as Niners making moves. But before I ask you that, if you had to make a decision between DJ Jones, Lincoln Tomlinson, Jaquaski Tart, who are you keeping and who are you letting go?
DJ Jones, Laken Tomlinson, and Jaquaski Tart out of that group?
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough group. Laken Tomlinson is the first one out of that group for me.
Okay.
And then I would say I would say that DJ Jones is probably more important. Even that one's tough because of his ability. I don't think the 49ers have anybody. Those are two tough names that you just mentioned there, because I don't think the 49ers have anybody that replaces either of those guys straight up without having to bring somebody else in. I'm going to go with Jaquaski Tart because I feel I'm going to go with Jaquaski Tart because I feel that they could probably get by a little bit better on the defensive line with somebody else because of what Kocurek has been able to show over the last few years with his ability to bring different guys in and get more out of them than they've done in other spots. So let's go in that direction.
Yeah. I was listening to KNBR where it might have been Locked On 49ers with Crocker and Peacock, and both of them were kind of leading towards, I don't know who exactly was. I might have been them, but they were leaning towards Jaquaski because of just what he brings. And you look at the guys that are there, Tavarius Moore, Hufanga has a lot of issues in coverage, which scare the hell out of me. I don't like that. As much as I'm a big fan of his close to the line of scrimmage, when it comes to coverage, he's a super big liability. So, yeah, I'm pulling with you. And I'm not just saying this because I want to agree with you. I definitely agree with you on Tart. I think Tart's the guy. I think the Niners have enough defensive line depth, and I think they can find somebody in the draft to replace, find a nose tackle in like the 4th round or 5th round. So we'll see. But I definitely am. I'm definitely in your camp with that one for sure.
It's a tough one because, the DJ Jones is a really good player. I think the thing that kind of sways it more towards Tart is obviously DJ Jones only played 51% of the snaps last year, so he wasn't on the field all that much. And when Tart is healthy, he's a difference maker for this defense. The defense is much better with Jaquaski Tart on the field than they are without him. We saw that in full display against the Cardinals the second time they played against them. And Ward was missing in that game as well, so they're both not out there. But those two are huge. The only concern I have with Tart and the only thing that gives me pause with Tart is his injury history. Definitely.
Well, you can say that about DJ Jones too. He can get nicked up a little bit too.
Sure, but even more so with Tart. If Jaquaski Tart's injury history is like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's either plays a full season or he misses 3/4 of it with an injury. It seems like.
Yep, agreed. I had an article that I came up that I saw yesterday. I made a little quick video of it. It was about the Niners being able to do some restructuring, and it was per over the cap. I think it was Niners Nation. It said the Niners could save, if they did some rework of Ward's contract, they could save $6.3 million in cap space, and with Armstead, they could save $9.8 million this season and next. Think the Niners are going to do anything like that and do some restructuring, or because if they do and then they add the Jimmy deal, they could actually make a move or two in free agency with an extra, $16 million. What's your take on that?
They're going to have to do some of those because right now they're $4 million under the cap or over the cap. Excuse me. Because remember, at this time of the year when the league year starts on the 16th of March. It's going to be the top 51 contracts that they're looking at. So the 51 players that those first, and right now the 49ers only have 44 when you look at their future signings as well, right? So
yes.
that $4 million over the cap includes those future signings because the 49ers only have 44 guys under contract right now. So they have to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. They get that money. That gets them to about 19, 20 million. But you still have, what is it? I think it's nine free agents that are either exclusive rights free agents or restricted free agents. So you bring those guys back. Once you get the money from Garoppolo and you bring those guys, you're back down to only a few $1 million in cap space. And you still have to have $7 million. They have to have about 7.7, I think it is.
For a draft class.
For their draft class, yes. So they're going to have to move some money around. Who they do it with, that's anybody's guess. But it's going to be another article that I wrote ahead of its time, I guess, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The top one is Eric Armstead. He's the first guy you look at because he's $20 million cap hit this year. So he's the first one you look at for a restructure to lower that number. And he has a pretty good amount of base salary that they can work with to get that done. Jimmy Ward is one. And then if they want to dip into that farther, there's George Kittle and Trent Williams that they can play around with as well. And then they have guys like Samson Ebukam and Emmanuel Mosley, who are on the end last year of their deal. Ebukam especially, he's like got an $8-point-something million cap hit. I really felt like he played extremely well once he moved into the starting lineup. You give him another year, maybe 2, whatever you want to do there, but another year allows you to give him the same money that he expected to make this year in terms of, I think it's like around $4.5 million is what is the cash to the player supposed to be this year, somewhere in that ballpark. You give him that money, and you can still lower his cap hit by half. And same thing with Emmanuel Mosley.
I guess the thing with all that is if the players have to be willing to make that sacrifice, and I would hope that they would, because like you said, the Niners really need to. I think they need to address a couple needs, possibly free agency. I mean, the Niners only have 2 receivers really on the roster, and I think they have an exclusive rights with Juwan Jennings type deal, and then they have nothing really behind those guys. And then the cornerback position, do you think they make a move on a Gilmore or a J.C. Jackson or anybody like that? Or is it more of a DJ Reed or even somebody of even lesser known name that the Niners might target if they were able to somehow save any money?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility of like a Gilmore or a Jackson, probably more of a Gilmore, just because that's the name that we're hearing right now from
right.
Thanks to Richard Sherman.
I think
the 49ers are going to they're not going to be able to make multiple big splashes in free agency, but there's a possibility that they may make 1 or 2. And a guy like Gilmore, if you sign him for a 3 or 4 year deal, you can make it so that the first year of the cap isn't a big number, and then they kind of play around with it from there. So, when one of the things if we're talking about cap and we're talking about restructuring and all those kind of things, what I would suggest to people who are getting on the sites to figure out what the cap numbers are, there's over the cap and there's I don't know if it's Spot Track or Spot Track, however you say that. I would suggest if you're interested in cap that you look at both of those, because they're interesting, because the over the cap gives you the numbers. So same with Spot Track. What Spot Track does is they also give you what the cash to the player is. And it's important because the cap hit number has nothing to do with what the player is making that year. And so when it comes to restructuring, that'll kind of help you get an idea of what they may be, why it might be beneficial to a player, or why they may be willing to do it versus another person.
Yeah, they have as far as corner, they have the same issue. I have the same question with wide receivers. Is there anybody out there that you think the Niners could bring in, or better off?
So wide receiver, a wide receiver in the article that I put out on Thursday, that you have Mike Williams is the one that like the big name that everybody's out there, right? There's Mike Williams, but I don't see the 49ers going big on a third wide receiver when they're already going to probably be spending big money on Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is a top level receiver that's going to be coming up shortly as well. Juwan Jennings. I think that those first 3 guys of the 49ers are pretty solid.
Yep, I agree.
I would look for a name that I will throw out there outside of Mike Williams, because I don't think that's going to get done. I don't see them spending $16 million for a third, fourth receiver, would be Matt Collins of the Miami Dolphins. Not a big name guy, but he's a guy who you're bringing him in to fill the role that you brought Trent Sherfield in for. Collins is a special teams guy. He's big, 6'4", 200 something pounds. Has the speed to get deep. He's always been a deep threat. He's kind of a little bit of a one-trick pony in that standpoint. You could bring him in, play special teams for you, and he could be the guy that you use to take the top off of the defense, kind of replacing Sherfield and Travis Benjamin in that way.
And now they actually have a quarterback that can actually stretch the field with those throws. No hit on Jimmy, just calling a spade a spade. He has the arm to do it, so it might actually be something that, and if they hit him, then it just opens up stuff over the middle for a guy like Kittle, and with all the stuff the Niners like to do over the middle anyways.
And Deshaun Jackson would be another guy too. That's somebody that
heard that
my Hammer and Nails co-host threw out the other night when we were talking about this. He threw out Deshaun Jackson, and I could see that working out. He was making some plays with the Rams early on in the season before things went south with them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wouldn't be against a guy like that coming in and just having a specific job to help the 49ers kind of open up their offense. And then I have the same question for you with edge rusher. Is edge rusher something you hit in the draft, you think, and attack that maybe with your first pick in the second round, or would you try for a free agent pass rusher, say like a Dante Fowler?
It's probably going to be somebody that would be, with the 49ers, it's probably going to be somebody in the draft, or it's going to be an edge rusher. It could be either way. I mean, a guy like Dante Fowler should be a little bit on the cheap, and you're looking to see if Kassera can work his magic to get him back up and make him money for somebody else down the road. I'm not as big of a on the need for the edge as some folks are. I think the 49ers are in pretty good shape. I said earlier, I like Samson Ebukam, what he did once he moved into the starting role. They have Charles Omenihu, who played well down the stretch, and that was a really nice trade for the 49ers at the trade deadline. That's 2 years in a row that they've done this now. They did it with Jordan Willis as well the year before. And then Jordan Willis, again, he's a free agent right now, but you can bring him back, I think, for pretty cheap. And he's a defensive end for you. So I think they're in pretty good shape, realistically. I think more than anything, it's a little bit of, that secondary, the corner play has to be a little bit tougher, and they were in a good position a lot against the Rams. You had a quarterback who was making some big throws, and they were struggling against the run, especially early on in that game.
I haven't been reading a lot of comments today, but I'm going to read this one, because I totally agree with it. It says the Niners love the trenches in the draft. Don't be surprised if we draft a few big boys this year. Yeah, it could be either side of the ball. One question I didn't get to you. I'm going to try to wrap this puppy up so you can get out of here. It was offensive line. Because you said, Lakin, it's your first guy off the list as far as if you had to pick three. Are you in the mindset that Aaron Banks goes over to left guard? And
that would be my expectation. Yes, that would be my expectation. Is that I feel like the 2021 draft was all built for 2022. I think they went into that draft feeling that they had a pretty good team in place for the 2021 season, and they needed to. They saw kind of what was coming with all the contracts, and they decided to get ahead of it a little bit and get these guys a year early. And then, so you're going to have that. And then also the 2021 class, which won't have a first rounder. And between that, you're kind of, the 49ers I feel like they've done a really good job of building up their bench throughout the organization, throughout the roster, throughout their coaching staff, and throughout their front office. It's one of the things that's impressive about where they are right now.
I wouldn't have agreed with you early in the season, but you and a couple other people have talked about the Niners almost like redshirting. And you look at a guy like I saw it on Twitter, Trey Sermon, or it was Instagram. Like he's already, for whatever to happen to him this year, he could have had any reason to just not give a damn because of just how the running back position worked out. And he didn't really get the amount of touches that maybe a lot of us think he should have. I mean, he's already grinding in the offseason. I think that's great. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I think he's going to be a lot more of a factor next year than a lot of people realize. And I think you're right. I think they they drafted to the future. And I think that's a really smart thing to do, especially if you know you have upcoming free agents. So if you can afford to have a guy redshirt and get his body right, because some people come in the NFL and they're soft or they're weak and they need to put weight on, like an Ambry Thomas or guys who play corner. Like, oh man, if he just put a little size, on and worked on his upper body strength, he'd be really good at this, and that. Or this offensive lineman, he just needs to get in pro shape and get that baby fat off. I mean, that's what seems like this last year and this coming off season is going to be. So I'm with you. I think the Niners are setting themselves up to be pretty successful. I think they have a really good roster as we sit right here, but I think they're going to do more to kind of just finish that roster off for a couple pieces here, a couple pieces there. And, the NFC is looking real gettable next year other than the Rams. So I hope the Niners can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I do too. I just feel like they're in a pretty good spot. And if the quarterback thing works out for them, I think that they're going to be just fine. It's funny because I don't know how many times I've written that quarterbacks get more credit than they deserve and they get more blame than they deserve. It goes both ways.
I agree with that.
And at the same time, the quarterback position in the NFL, if you have a guy that's a quarterback, that's a good, a top of the line quarterback, it doesn't matter obviously it matters what you have around them when you get to certain points in the season, but you can get to the playoffs on a regular basis if you have a quarterback who is consistent and makes plays and things like that. I mean, look what McVay did with Jared Goff, right? He was healthy year after year and they won games, over and over again. They never won the Super Bowl. They got there, but they were consistent. And same thing with Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, that's kind of the other side of it. He's always been healthy. And since he came in there and stepped in year 2, team's been either in the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game all 4 years. So
it matters. I think a great quarterback matters, and it can cover up a lot of zits, a lot of blemishes on your team if you're missing. If a guy like a Josh Allen or a Mahomes in that game where neither defense could play a lick, but the quarterbacks, I mean, I've never seen anything like that in my life. So it's going to be fun these next couple of weeks. So as you get closer to free agency and the draft I get very excited. So hopefully the Niners do something that I don't expect and I can come on YouTube and act like I know what I'm talking about and get excited about it. But Jack, I appreciate you coming on. I know you got kind of a heart out. So if you want to let everybody know, a lot of people here do follow you. For the people that don't, where they could find you and tell them a little about yourself before we get out here.
Yeah, just go ahead and, my Twitter handle is there, JackHammer_NFL. If you go to my Twitter page, it has my YouTube link on there as well. If you don't have Twitter and you just want to go on YouTube and find it there, just type that in, JackHammer_NFL, and it'll pop up. So I have all that information. Also, get yourself over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's the inside the 49ers blog with the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. That's where all of the writing that I do goes up. I usually try to have at least one article a day during the week. Right now during the off season, that's the case. When the season's rolling around, it's a 7-day a week job. So get yourselves over there, make it, get that bookmark it, make it a favorite on your browser so it makes it easy for you to find it. And same thing with my channel. If you guys can subscribe over there, that'd be great, because I'm trying to get to 7,000 by the beginning of May.
Look at you. That's awesome. I'm happy for you, man.
That's the goal.
That's fantastic.
I think I'm at about 3.5 right now. So I'm looking to try to double that in the next couple of months. So let's see how it works.
I have no doubt that you will. I'm trying to get to 4K myself. To me, wherever I get is all plus at this point. You know what I mean? I never thought of myself as, someone that actually covers a team like you. So if I have 4K, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? And the more that happens, it's just like a bonus. So thanks for coming on, Jack. I know you got to run. Thanks everybody in the chat, the comments for chiming in. I know I didn't get to a lot of you, but I really wanted to get to Jack's takes on things. And until next time, everybody stay safe and healthy. And as I always say, see you on the flip side, everyone. Bye.